Hello, good afternoon, you guys. I'm saying good afternoon, but we are actually going to be making breakfast because breakfast is good any time of day, right? So we are going to be making some pancakes, and I am going to be using a gluten-free flour mixture to show you that you can make good things gluten-free. Okay, first I want to talk about mise en place. What does mise en place mean? It translates to everything in its place. So you see on those cooking shows, they have all the ingredients already measured out in little containers and all ready to be just dumped in and mixed, right? So that is good mise en place. So I have started mise en placing my ingredients. I put all of the dry mixtures in one bowl because we are using the muffin mixing method, which is all the dry, all the wet, and then you mix them together. So in my bowl right here, I have the flour, the baking powder, the baking soda, and the salt. And then I have already ready my yogurt, but I'm going to be using a scale to weigh out my yogurt. I'm going to show you how to use a digital scale today. And I've got my eggs ready to go, my sugar, and I'm going to be using almond milk for this recipe. And you'll notice right here I have a little lemon, and that is because I'm technically supposed to be using buttermilk, but since I don't have buttermilk, we're going to make our own today. So why is mise en place so important? Number one, it just keeps you organized. It helps you cook cleaner, so it keeps your area nice and clean, and it helps you so that you don't forget an ingredient, because when you have everything lined up and you've checked your recipe, you're less likely to make a mistake. So I want to talk to you guys again about buttermilk. At my house, we don't use a lot of buttermilk, and I hate going to the store and buying an entire carton of buttermilk only to use a little bit of it. So if you don't have buttermilk at home, you can make your own. The ratio is you're supposed to use a tablespoon of an acid. You can use either lemon juice or white vinegar. I'm going to be using lemon juice in mine to 1 cup of milk. So what you would do is you take your liquid measuring cup and you would measure out a tablespoon of an acid, put it in your liquid measuring cup, and then pour the milk in until you get to the 1 cup mark, and then just give it a stir and let it sit. And that will act as buttermilk in your recipe. So the acid in buttermilk is going to react with your baking soda, right, and help your products to rise. So since I only needed a 1/4 cup of milk, I just need a little bit of acid. So I'm just going to squeeze just a little bit of lemon in there, and I'm just going to let that sit aside after I give it a little stir. Give it a little stir. Just let that sit there for a couple minutes while I get all my other ingredients ready. Okay, so I have all my dry ingredients, and I'm going to put those in a bowl that's big enough for me to be able to whisk. Now, if I had a sifter, I could sift my dry ingredients together, but I'm just going to use this whisk, make sure there's no clumps. You can use any gluten-free mix. I just happen to have this one at my house, so I'm using this one. But any gluten-free mix should work. So give that a nice little stir. Then I'm going to do my liquid ingredients. So in a separate bowl, first I want to weigh out my yogurt to make sure I have the right amount. So I need 1.3 ounces of plain Greek yogurt. So you're going to take your digital scale, and there should be different buttons on it. I'm going to press just the on button. I'm making sure that it's on ounces, and then I'm going to press the on button again, because on mine the on button tears it out to 0, okay? So I'm going to put my bowl on. I'm going to tear it out to 0 again. So now it says that my bowl doesn't weigh anything. So it's really easy for me to measure the right amount of ingredients. So I need 1.3 ounces of Greek yogurt. Okay, that is perfect. I'm going to need 2 eggs, which I'm going to crack in a separate bowl to make sure that they're good eggs. Perfect. Go ahead and add that one in. Crack my second egg. that a little mix to break up my yolks. Get my scale out of the way. And then remember, I'm going to add my sugar. Remember, sugar typically goes in with the wet ingredients. Then I'm going to add my buttermilk. And last but not least, I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla. And I just love almond extract in my pancakes. So I'm going to add a tiny bit of almond extract too. So I'm going to do a teaspoon of vanilla. Now almond extract goes a long way. So you only need a couple drops. So I tend to measure it. I'll pour it into the cap to make sure I don't pour too much in. And then just get a couple drops in there. Give that a good whisk. And then I'm ready to add my wet ingredients to my dry ingredients. I'm going to use a rubber spatula to make sure that I get all of this goodness in there. Whisk to make sure all the ingredients are combined. Now, different gluten-free flour blends might act differently, and you may need to add a little bit more liquid. Actually, this one is very thick, so I'm going to add a little bit more milk to this one. Okay, so I ended up having to add 3 times as much milk as the recipe called for to make this so that it will actually be able to spread out in the pan to make pancakes. So that's why it's important to check your recipes beforehand. I got this recipe from a hotel, and obviously the guy didn't give me the correct recipe. So I had to add a little bit more milk. I will adjust that in the recipe that I give to you guys though, so don't worry. Now I'm going to let this sit for a little bit while I get my my skillet preheated to medium heat, okay? Okay, so just like when I made the French toast, I'm using my biggest, flattest bottomed pan that I own. And I have put about 1.5 tablespoons of butter, and I'm just going to coat the bottom of this pan with the butter as it melts. And when it's nice and hot and the bubble starts to sizzle, I'm going to add my batter. Now, because I am using gluten-free flour, this batter tends to be on the thicker side. So this is almost hot enough, I can tell. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dish a little bit into my bowl, and then I'm probably going to have to spread it around with my spatula, which is something you won't typically have to do with regular floured pancake batter. I'm going to make 3 plain, and then I'm just going to take a handful of blueberries and mix some blueberries in for the last batch. Because since I'm the only gluten-free person in my house, I'm the only one that's going to be eating these. So if you wanted to add chocolate chips, you could add chocolate chips. You could add little slices of banana, but I love blueberry pancakes. So I just am going to mix some blueberries in there gently. Now with gluten-free flour, obviously there's no gluten in it. So I'm not too worried about over-mixing my batter. But if you were making pancakes with regular all-purpose flour, you would definitely want to be cautious about over-mixing because you don't want little hockey pucks for pancakes, okay? So when you're mixing blueberries in at the last minute, you want to gently fold. Do your best not to over-mix your batter, okay? So what am I looking for? I am just going to be waiting for the pancakes to get nice little bubbles on top and kind of start popping. I can take a peek underneath with my spatula when I think they're getting close to being done, just to take a look at what color it is. I want it to be nice and golden brown before I go ahead and flip them. So I'm gonna let these cook a little bit longer until they're ready. Now again, the gluten-free flour probably won't show those beautiful bubbles that regular floured pancakes would, but we're gonna still keep our eye on them. Okay, so since the gluten-free flour is so heavy, the little bubbles that I'm looking for aren't showing up. So I'm gonna have to demo this with real flour too, so you guys can see what it should look like with real flour. But the color is nice. Just gonna give these a little flip. You can see that shiny gleam that the butter in the pan has left on my pancakes. And I'm just gonna cook them on this side until that side is nice and golden brown as well. And then I'm gonna wipe that butter clean out of my pan, put another little bit of fresh butter in there before I cook off the rest of them. That way the butter doesn't burn and I don't get that burnt butter flavor on my pancakes.